0559 019 177. At the appropriate time, we shall also activate the phone lines for you to call in and ask questions or make contributions during the show. My name is Kennedy. Now we are back in a jiffy.
Every now and again, Goil makes good things happen. This time, Goil has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Goil Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Goil Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Goil Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Goil Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goil has that sorted. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
So you're welcome back. Now it's time for us to take a look at some of the happenings in the port and maritime industry, some activities that took place in the course of the week, and one that really comes to mind is the fact that the Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority has commended the Burkina Faso shipping community for having faith in Ghana's ports. And we also had some guests or visitors from the Gambian Port Authority who paid a courtesy call. At GPHA, they also came primarily to take a look at the operations of the Ghana Dock Labour Company Limited and how, you know, they are operating. They want to replicate same in their country. We'll take a look at that particular story. And then the Ministry of Finance also engaged GPHA on the new procurement regulations. All these stories and more. Enjoy.
The Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Michael Luguje, has praised the trading community in Burkina Faso for using Ghana's ports and corridors ahead of other Francophone countries over the years. The DG of GPHA was speaking during a courtesy call by the Deputy Managing Director in charge of support services at the Burkina Faso Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Ajaba Patricia Badolo, to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority.
Competition from Togo, Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, which are Francophone and also CFA. If despite that, Ghana is number 2.
Michael Luguje assured of the ports of Ghana's continued delivery of reliable services to the trading community of Burkina Faso and revealed major plans by government to provide alternative cargo transport routes to serve the Sahelian regions.
The idea is to do rail. There's already rail line that is being constructed from Tema to the lake, and the expectation is that we can build a small port at the lake and then build another small port in the north at the end of the river, so that cargo can move from port by rail to water and then up north. So far the studies show that if you use that mode, there is an advantage, there's a cost advantage.
The Deputy Managing Director in charge of support services at Burkina Faso Chamber of Commerce and Industry assured of continued collaboration with Ghana's Port Authority to woo more traders to use Ghana's ports.
Plans are afoot for the Gambia Port Authority to establish a well-functioning dock labor company at the port of Banjul. In this light, a Gambian delegation comprising management personnel of the Gambia Port Authority, dock workers, and officials from the local maritime labor union has embarked on a study tour to the port of Tema to observe how the Ghana Dock Labor Company functions. The general manager in charge of corporate planning at the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Samuel Intokumi, briefed the delegation on the origins of the labor company, as well as the advantages and the challenges of such an establishment.
It was registered as a limited liability company. But of course, it was supposed to operate as a non-profit, so that whatever money they get, it will be plowed back into the business to enhance operations, to improve the welfare of the workers. So it was done with a lot of support from GPHA, providing office accommodation, provide training, provide a whole lot of things to bring it up.
The managing director of the Ghana Dock Labor Company, Elisha Odum, further touched on the organizational structure and the operations of GDLC, including the expansion of the company's portfolio beyond port work.
We have another branch in Takrady, over 4,000 workforce, and they go from dockers, those that do the loading and offloading, to machine operators, to office staff, data entry clerks, tally clerks, and all that. It has become a conduit by which GPHA also do recruitment, if I should say.
The representatives of the Gambia Port Authority said the study tour will help create a roadmap for the imminent implementation of a dock labor scheme in their country. A delegation from the Ministry of Finance has held a sensitization workshop with top management of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority on the Public-Private Partnership Act and the Public Investment Management Regulations introduced in 2020. This program forms part of a nationwide sensitization program to provide information to state-owned enterprises on the rights, guidelines, and due processes necessary to stay within the legal boundaries for procurement and infrastructural investment. Lead at the infrastructure sector of the Public Investment and Assets Division at the Ministry of Finance, Daniel Yeboah-Forson outlined some of the new modules entrenched in the regulations.
So the law mandates GPHS to set up what we call the Public Investment Unit to help develop, prepare their projects ahead of time. As a covered entity, they need this training, and officers within that unit, the PIU unit, needs to be trained on the various functions, roles that they need to play, so that when they finally set up one, they will know what to do.
He said implementation of these laws will help state agencies like the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority to adequately prepare, secure funding, cut costs, and complete projects within projected timelines.
So those were some activities that took place in the port and maritime industry during the week. We will now go for the Goil TV market. And remember, the Goil TV market is to showcase the services and products of one of our lead sponsors, that's Goil Company Limited. And the premium is always placed on the Goil Super XP Ron 95. This week's edition comes from the 2nd Takrady service station.
Goil, in the service of the nation. North, south,
we are at the 2nd Trotro station in the heart of Takrady. So in Takrady, we have stations in 2nd, Esikado, Beposo. We have one at Bakechu. When you are going towards Western North, our stations stretch all the way to Halfasini, Enchi. We are well represented with about 5 stations in Takwa. We have stations all over. I want to assure drivers that we have their interest at heart. So they should be well aware that when they get to our stations, they are assured of quality, quantity, and they are assured of good customer service.
Yeah, advert Bebri Martin Ka Super SP 195. Yeah, petrol ni ahabamono. And a petrol normal one na market no. Koko a obi anim no. Eniye. Uto di gu ka mu a esansa na ho de no ewo soro ni ntino. Ete ewo wo ka no. Esan so e ma winji no eye adwuma yie. But we no e ba ni yie. Enti enja sa black smoke biya eden. Ewo winji block no. In addition to that, no, you the eduro aso Ghana hano, you will diesel now who do 2 days of diesel. Your high sulfur diesel and your ultra low sulfur diesel. If you go, young, yes, young high sulfur and farm now. yɛtɔn ultra low sulfur. Wokɔ Europe mu ne adeade the highest sulfur a wɔsɔ ɔmo nya ɛyɛ 10 ppm. Over Ghana ha, the highest sulfur a wɔsɔ yɛnya ɛyɛ 50 ppm. That is the maximum. And the space is being turned as high as 1,500 ppm. Into Okota, for signboard will say air for power. OCF into better, or damage your car. Stay with that. Yeah, talk ultra low sulfur. So the difference in 50 ppm now, if you are 10 ppm, 15, 19, and I hear Tom. If Fasodia, Ubena will you diesel no, anymore. Now a drone with a extra benefit to you.
XPPA additive na all go for no. Otu option in so of the film. So who injectors all film. All to go for no. No kind of injectors and so more. So no. According to other essential to injector cleaner, is it good? Engine another kind of beam. And my enemy now when you're Jahono. So extra. No more mileage.
Yeah, ne go for product or more diabano. Yeti a yedi a chine say one product near quality. You say Jumaya near and no lady and son with Diane a prayer. It's the baby or can who be a say ye. Next medium when you study show Busia. Yeah, the last year election year, whole lot of activities was so. And so, yes, statistics are so bad, as so say. The better go from Swasi, Jumedia would be the boy in last year. Yeah, you will feel once that. Your cost one for that. Secondary station, yet that was a pa. To see a DNA to why yes, you should be a Jumedia or do a region. Now, you would say Mujumedino, as well, ni papa. Or sometimes we see I mean, share any jacket me see I may say, I'm a monetarian. We will say, would you pa?
And for yes, yes, if you don't American, Yareka, driver for the American, and you see, you're a boy, the little local sala. Nay, I branch to her. So, may I will, it didn't say what on connection one, because of what I say, and the most of them will get. If we are made money, one answer for what on the position, a good mark Congress to be a bit. You may only down per day. Therefore, one product or your good.
Well, yeah. Ghana yala ya dia. And what be ala wali yeno. Where would the standard of Ghana? And the one petrol. Oh yeah. It's a way they be ala boka to fuel.
Monsieur GPHA if you go for. Minya car 2 years. Me use gold products. Minya problem ja. Gold. At times yeah beat him pa. Me the catch drivers no. Must one son. What difference, you know? So at the end of the day, now calculate so we invest in. Now, the China crying out there, Babette Nephew, can't see all the answer. We income the ball. Now, so for no, not a kind of car, not the big car, crowd, but one of the and so we say, and no, a yes saying, said there, a bear, just
All right, so you're welcome back, and that was Goel TV Market, showcasing services and products of one of our lead sponsors, Goel Company Limited. It's time for us to zoom into the discussion proper tonight, and tonight we're talking the global shortage of containers, or boxes, if you like. Now, the shipping community globally are reeling under a severe pressure emanating from the shortage of boxes. What happened? How did we get there? What is the effect or impact of this particular shortage on Ghana's shipping industry? Tonight, that's what we're looking at. We've assembled a team who are competent enough to do justice to this topic tonight. And so, to my right is Mr. Fred Asiedu-Date. Mr. Asiedu-Date is the head of logistics and head of freight and logistics at the Ghana Shippers Authority. He also doubles as the president of the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers Ghana, ICS. Good evening, sir, and welcome. And we also have Mr. Maxwell. Let me get the name right. He's Mr. Maxwell Ampong, a very, very popular name, Maxwell Ampong. He's the chief executive officer of Maxwell Investments. In fact, he wrote a very, very elaborate article on this particular subject in the Business and Financial Times. We looked at it, and he brought certain perspectives, to the table, which he would like to share with us tonight on the show. Max, good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let me begin with Mr. Asiedu-Date and find out from you whether this particular phenomenon that's a shortage of TUs, boxes globally, has been brought to the attention of the Ghana Shippers Authority?
Well, thank you very much. Before I start off, I want to make a quick correction. The issue about my presidency with the ICS ended a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I have handed over, and in fact, the person to whom I handed over has also handed over. And so I'm the, if you like, the ex.
Yeah, okay, past president of ICS, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed.
Well, okay, so now back to the subject that we are discussing. Indeed, the global shortage of containers is a matter that has come to the attention of the Ghana Shippers Authority. And as you are well aware, the Ghana Shippers Authority is established to protect and promote the interest of shippers. And so to a very large extent, anything that impacts on the business of shippers also directly impacts on the Ghana Shippers Authority. And indeed, so one may ask, how did it come about? What was the explanation that we got? As you are well aware, COVID hit the entire world, and it took us by storm. And our understanding is that with the onset of COVID, a number of vessels were laid off. So there were capacity issues in the beginning. And so while most countries were locking down and people thought, okay, we're going on a slowdown, some countries began to recover quicker than others.
Right.
One particular one was China. And that was also when there was a global need for PPEs, and a number of others also began to demand just simply shot up for many, many reasons. If we want to go into the details of the reasons, it would take us a whole period. And so you realize that suddenly by the second quarter of 2020, demand shot up.
Right.
With a shooting up of demand, and a lot of the demand was also focused on China. And so you realize that suddenly China found itself in a position where there were no sufficient boxes to meet those demands. Why? Because the boxes that had gone out were locked up in various spots.
Right.
There were congestion, there were lockdowns, most places, there were no businesses at ports and all of that. And so containers had been locked up all over the world. And of course, the demand was pointing also to China. And so that imbalance, triggered the process of, the shortage. There are a number of other things that have happened in the meantime. I mean, we can talk about the Suez Canal issue that came up. Absolutely. That over a period of 6 days when the Ever Given, blocked the channel. A number of vessels in excess, of 260, I think, were locked up.
So global trade was
trade
on a standstill.
And so the supply chains were locked up, and that is the beginning of the challenge. And it has gotten worse and worse by the day.
All right, so let me come to you, Mr. Ampong. You wrote an article in the BNFT detailing reasons why you thought that this happened and what the impact or effect, would be.
Yeah.
Can you run us through, some of the key points or salient points that you raised in your article?
Okay. Thank you once again. Mr. Fred has hit a lot of the good points. Shipping containers usually bring cargo in what you call boxes.
Yeah.
The shipping these containers that are loaded on the ships, and typically these containers circulate around the world. Albeit they might stop at certain locations, but when they move from China, they usually circle back to China. And now China, from January last year to April this year, has done about 20 billion metric tons of cargo traffic. This equates to about more than 350 million 20-footer containers. So you have to understand China is exporting way more, just like Mr. Fred again said, due to Western demand for their produce. Now, locally in Ghana, there's a huge market for imported goods, whether we want it from the West, US, Europe. We have to keep in mind that even the West, US, Europe, outsource their production to China.
Yeah.
So China is at the center of this whole debacle. They are the center of everything. So when these containers leave and don't circle back, the global circulation equilibrium is distorted. And when that happens, suddenly, it's not as if the containers evaporated. They are still there. They're just in different locations than they normally would be. We have to assume that at every port, there's an optimum amount of containers that should leave and that should come in. When those figures are, let me say, messed with, suddenly you have a disruption in trade because you have an increased demand, and now you have all the ships that's ready, but you don't have shipping containers because the containers that at this point without COVID should have been in, let's say, Poland, Copenhagen, are now somewhere else.
Right.
Bloomberg reported in February, just at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, 40 shipping vessels all queued up waiting to be cleared simply because of COVID restrictions, lack of manpower, lack of equipment. And when this happens, it's you and I that suffer. I can assure you no importer says my landed cost is X, and now it's X plus 2, so I'm going to take the 2, and I'm going to save you and me from buying at an extra cost. So China is in the middle of all of this because of the vast amounts of export that they have, and this is a problem that will stay for a while.
Right. So let me come to you, Mr. Asiodidate, and find out from you how pervasive or how severe is this global shortage? Do you have any figures you want to share with us?
No, not. I don't have figures for the shortage as we speak, except to say that it is very serious. Now, this is what it is. As we speak, what is happening is all orders to China are not getting available boxes, and so shipments are delayed in excess of a month and a half and 2 months. So while previously you could order goods and maybe within 2 weeks the shipment is effected, booking is made and your next possible shipment would be 6 weeks after.
Wow.
And so it is that grave.
Wow, that's terrible indeed. So let's come down to Ghana and how this is impacting the shipping community. Have we started feeling the impact of this particular shortage?
Oh, as for the impact, we started feeling it. I'd say by the end of the first quarter of 2020, we started feeling the impact. Because suddenly, freight rates that were circling around $3,600 for a 40-footer started moving. And so, in that case, I have brought some figures, which I can share with you.
Please do.
For instance, so this 40-footer containers from the North China area was around 3,600. This was back in maybe June 2020. By December 2020, it had gone up to 7,950. And by May 2021, it has gone up to 10,200. And as we speak, it is between 12,000 and 13,000 for a 40-footer container. I mean, this is way in excess of about 260% increase. And I mean, if a businessman is hit with this kind of reality, there is no way, they are able to absorb it. And so obviously, the ripple effect is that it's going to run over, and everybody is going to feel it. And everybody is going to feel it. This is what it is. So in terms of how it impacts on us, there are two broad ways. The first one is that there are going to be delays, excessive delays. And those who are in the business will tell you, over the last 6 months, I mean, there are shippers who are going all over the place, asking for shipments to be done, begging for boxes to ship their goods. But the boxes are simply not available. And so that is the delays is one part, and then the other part is the cost, the freight that is going up astronomically. And that is impacting everyone.
Right. I'll come back to you, and because we know that when it comes to boxes and shipping lines, importers and freight forwarders have always had issues with the shipping lines. They charge them for certain, certain fees and all that, which they think, shouldn't happen. Do you think that demurrage and all that, whether you think that this, particular shortage would kind of like affect, these fees and charges, and then perhaps make it more and exacerbate as it were, the plight of the importer or the freight forwarder. But let me come to you, Max, and find out whether you have done any assessment or you have taken time to examine what the local impact is as far as this phenomenon is concerned.
Yes, as stated in my article last week, I spoke to 2 companies, and one of them had a very innovative way to deal with it, plus gave me a little bit of insight. The frozen industry, for instance, in Ghana is highly dependent on imports, especially, let's say, poultry, frozen poultry. Now, chicken leg quarters, which is a frozen frozen chicken product, have had price increases considerably, about 20% every week, considerably at every step of the way. So now what happens is that companies that are import dependent are hesitant to enter long-term contracts. Because if I enter a 6-month contract with you, and if I'm used to signing 6 months agreements with you, now I will be hesitant because I am not ready to have a $12,000 US cost added to my cost when I have already agreed with you maybe 4 months prior that it will be $3,000 US. And that makes the market a little bit too arbitrary because now you have to always call industries, or especially industries that are import dependent, for pricing. It becomes a little bit of a kangaroo market. It makes sure that the end customer suffers. And most importantly, when you cannot predict a market, there's very little room for innovation. So again, the end customer suffers. This is especially prevalent in the imported the imported goods, because Ghanaians are very, very heavily dependent on imports.
All right. So let me come back to you, Mr. Asiedudate, and find out from you what you think that the impact would be as far as importers and freight forwarders are concerned. Like I said, already there are issues of container administrative charges and all those things, and we talk about demurrage and all that. And now that we are running short of boxes, what would that translate into for the operations of these importers and freight forwarders?
I think that the phenomenon we're dealing with was not anticipated. Nobody expected us to be where we are today. But it is important to also try and distinguish between the two charges. Okay, so first we're talking about freight charges. Freight usually is determined by demand and supply forces. I mean, you would take the example of someone who is bringing in, say, fridges. Just an example. You know, that is costing, or any other product for that matter, that would cost about, say, $25,000. Okay, for a 40-footer. I mean, and they would normally pay maybe $3,600 in terms of freight. Then suddenly they are confronted with a situation where the cost of goods hasn't changed, but the freight has gone up, you know, many, many times higher. You know, that is a concern in itself for shippers and, of course, their agents, freight forwarders. The second bit of it, which you are talking about, relate to local charges. Okay, so for instance, you are talking then about container administrative charge, container cleaning charge, which are the ones?
Which the freight forwarders and importers are fighting anyway.
Are fighting about, yes. And so in the first case, I just want to put a distinction. The first case, which had to do with the freight, there is pretty much nothing we can do about it. Because it is not a case where you could go and say, for instance, you're going to negotiate that, because it's the forces that are pushing that are completely different. The other one is the one that we engage with the shipping agents or the shipping lines agents, you know, in terms of negotiation and then mitigation in terms of the levels, you know. But unfortunately, the discussion that has been going on today has kind of mixed up everything, you know. So it's always important to break the two. Now, there's the other part that I would want to throw in. With respect to this container imbalance and the issues that relate to it.
Right.
Is there something that maybe the Ghanaian shipper could do, to kind of mitigate it? I've said earlier that this is something that we can pretty much not do so much about. However, there's a part that we have to do.
Okay.
As we speak, there are a number of containers that have come into the port which have not been cleared.
Right.
And so we have a list of what we call uncleared cargo list, UCL, which is compounding. UCL, by the way, would be the boxes or the containers that will come into the port and which will not be cleared after, say, 21 days. Because by law, if you are not able to clear your goods within 21 days, the government would confiscate those goods, And so you have a long list of goods building up on UCL. And the Ghana Shippers Authority has been doing some sensitization. In fact, we just completed a nationwide
And I understand that the West Corporate, in terms of the UCL, are government agencies.
Exactly. It's a bit unfortunate, but that is the reality. The truth is that once goods come into the port, if the goods belong to any private organization, private company, individual, after 21 days for general cargo, it's put on the UCL. What it means is that government at that time has the legal right to auction those goods. But if the goods are, say, vehicles, then you have an extended period. The law says you should do 60 days. So after 60 days, government takes control of those goods, and then they can auction. When it comes to consignments for government agencies, the law does not allow customs to auction those goods. And so you have containers sitting in the port. Some have done 100 days, some have done 300 days, and I tell you, some have done 5 years in the port. It's amazing. This is unacceptable. But for one reason or the other, either through government change or any contractual challenges, containers are sitting in the port. Two things. The shipping lines require their container to be able to go ahead and do their business. Because containers don't make money when they're sitting in the port. They make money when they're moving from port to port. Number two, the port authority require the space to be able to take on new containers. And so while you are stocking your goods or you're leaving your goods in the port, you are congesting the port. And we have had occasion to speak to the procurement officers at these MDAs. We have spoken, in fact, my chief executive led that effort. And we went to specific chief executives. I don't want to mention names on national television.
Absolutely,
but,
yes.
Just to get them to appreciate that their inaction, is costing the nation millions and is frustrating the business of our friends, the shipping lines. And I think that some sensitization has to be brought, to these guys or to these people, and then so we can have some action taken in this regard. As I speak with you, again, the Ghana Shippers Authority is leading an industry-wide committee made up of the shipping lines, made up of Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, made up of Ghana Revenue Authority, the Customs Division, and the agenda is to clearly spell out a standard operating procedure that would help in the administration of these UCLs and ensure that as soon as they go on UCL, we take all the legal means to dispose of these things, make the containers available. If the containers locked up, there would be in thousands. They may be small in respect of what is required generally to resolve this issue. However, they would contribute to it.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. This is Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television, and tonight we're discussing the global shortage of containers and its impact on the shipping industry in Ghana. To my right is Mr. Fred Asedu-Date. He's the head of freight and logistics at the Ghana Shippers Authority. And to my right is Mr. Maxwell Ampong, who is Chief Executive Officer of Maxwell Investments. Maxwell Investments, yes. We'll be back shortly after this break. Please take and stay.
Every now and again, Goil makes good things happen. This time, Goil has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Goil Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Goil Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Goil Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Goil Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goil has that sorted. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
All right, so you're welcome back. And let's move straight to Mr. Ampong. And let me find out from you, you made certain recommendations in your article. Can we expatiate on those ones and why you think that they would work?
Okay, if there's anything COVID has taught us, it's taught us that the only constant now is change. So one of the things that I think Mr. Fred and his agency is doing very well is they're trying to be very proactive. They're trying to have a high information level. They're trying to make sure that even proactive is the right word, which is react quite fast to the changes that are happening. The other thing too that Ghanaians, I think, leaned very well towards was e-commerce during the brief time that we had the lockdown. And in the West and Europe, retailing has now predominantly become online. Ghana here, we still do the brick and mortar. I go to the supermarket, I go to the market. If I want to buy something, I have to enter a physical shop to buy it. The change from brick and mortar to e-commerce is not that huge, but outside, it's been massive.
Right.
So if we are import dependent, yet doing e-commerce at that level and it's not able to bring it down to reduce that unit landed cost, it makes everything very much expensive. It's the second entity that I wrote in my article that I spoke with that's trying to actually change, try to innovate in this field. When you look at the shipping costs that keeps going up, I have to reiterate that there's no importer that's going to take this cost. If we don't solve it, what happens is that China, which imports most of our stuff from our food, from our clothes, from automobiles, from everything that we basically use all around the world, when this issue is not solved, it's going to keep going on and on and on. Last year, I toured the North of Ghana's biggest agricultural trade union, that's the General Agricultural Workers Union of Ghana, and when I remember when I was landing in Tamale, I asked the GS, the General Secretary, is all of this arable land?
You are referring to Mr. Kariwe.
You know Kariwe?
I know him very well. Yeah.
Edward is a very good friend of mine. So he's like, yes, all of this is arable land. Now, fast forward now, and we're talking about global shipping. Global shipping. It's outside Ghana's borders. What if I didn't need the rice from China?
Right.
What if I didn't need that thing that I'm trying so hard to buy from Europe or from the US? So this is time for innovation. This is a time to look inward. This is a time that initiatives like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area should actually be given the maximum amount of push, because if I am trying to buy products from Germany and it comes from Togo, I can just send a truck for it. The shipping times, all of this then becomes outside of my purview. So you have some companies that have rebounded very well because I think it was Russia that put a ban on EU goods, and China now has been able to fill that space and having farms that have about 22,000 acres and whatnot. Now, we have all this arable land, yet we are, again, I'm not trying to be political or anything of that sort. I'm just saying, if we have all this arable land and we are trying to increase our dependency on ourselves, we cannot do this without bold steps, because how does a farmer in the north compete with a 22,000 acre? You cannot, the unit cost, the economies of scale doesn't come in. So these recommendations are such that this is not going to be the first change that's going to come from this COVID wave. COVID would, from all express, is going to stay with us for quite a while. I mean, the effects will stay with us for quite a while. This instance should push us towards change, should push us towards trying to solve the situation in-house. It just cannot happen with just a little bit of effort. It has to be giant, bold steps. And I'm 1,000% an advocate for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, because if that had been effective for, let's say, 10 years by now, I don't think I would want to buy an iPhone from the US if there's a very good, production capacity within West Africa. So this is a time to enact actually the initiative motto, which is trade for Africans, by Africans, with Africans, everything African. That's what I think.
All right, very well. You still have more to say with regards to solutions to this particular phenomenon. But let me come to you, Mr. Asidu, that you made mention of the fact that yes, the UCL was one of the local things that is impacting us as far as boxes or containers are concerned. Apart from that, what are some of the issues? Are there any others that you'd want to mention? And have you engaged the shipping lines since this issue broke?
Oh, yeah, yes, indeed, the UCL is a major thing to do. Then the other thing perhaps we should be looking at is to try and do a lot more exports. A lot more exports, because you see, what is happening is that the reason the freight from China and from many of those countries, Europe, the Americas, to this place, the north-south trade, the reason why it's quite high is because when the imported cargo comes in, it does not have return cargo. And so the cost of the repositioning of the container and everything is built into the cost of the freight. And so I think that if we're able to improve our export base, it also helps to mitigate the level of the freight. But there was another angle to your question that said whether we had engaged the shipping.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, of course. We have had discussions, but again, as I indicated earlier, there is pretty much nothing that can be done, because you see, all of our engagements with the shipping lines, and indeed all the other shipping service providers, is data-driven.
Yes.
We like to engage them on the basis of fact. What is there, how it impacts on the discussion we're having. Our little research has not shown anything untoward. It is not as if the shipping lines are intentionally, raising the freight rate, to the disadvantage of the Ghanaian shipper. Because it is only then that we could step in and say that, oh, you need to look at this. We don't understand why this is this way. Our understanding, though, and we are still, it's a work in progress. We're still looking at some UNCTAD documentation in terms of vessel deployment strategies adopted by the various lines. We're looking at port calls and issues. We're looking at a host of other things, And so if we are to, chance upon anything that is solid enough, that would indict the shipping lines in terms of any wrong practice, who would bring it up and engage them in that regard. I would want to just also latch on something, my brother talked about, because the after thing is a very exciting thing waiting to happen. And I've been hoping, in fact, what we see generally today is that all over the trading blocks, they are doing regionalization.
Exactly.
Regionalization. I mean, you wake up one morning, all your imports are from, say, China. And suddenly, the cost of transporting the import from China is higher than the cost of the product. I mean, where do you stand?
It doesn't make sense.
It does not make a lot of sense. And so it is important to begin to look inward. Europe now is looking inward. They are making Turkey their new China. And because if you need something from the UK, look at where Turkey is. I mean, Italy, Turkey, you know, they're bringing everything closer. And I think AFTA gives us a wonderful opportunity to bring everything closer, build capacity, trust each other, do business, and ensure that, you know, just as he said, I mean, if he could get his iPhone from maybe Cote d'Ivoire or Nigeria, or if a Nigerian can get something from Ghana, what is the sense in going to buy from China, which is very far away, and then triple your cost by way of shipment? And so the after business is something that I think we all need to give some attention to, because our destiny lies in that one.
Okay, so let me come to you. I'll come to you shortly. And when I come to you, I want to find out from you whether you think that this shortage of boxes can affect the effectiveness and efficiency with which AFTA can operate, whether it will affect the member states. I'll come to you for that. But for now, we'll go onto the phone lines and speak to Mr. Albert Fiatui, who is the big man at the Center for International Maritime Affairs, Ghana. He would bring some perspectives onto the discussion. Good evening, Albert.
Good evening. How are you?
Thank you very much. You are Executive Director of the Center for International Maritime Affairs, Ghana. You have some perspectives you want to bring to bear on the discussion. Please, let's see. What's your initial assessment of this particular shortage, and what do you think the impact would be on us as a country?
Thank you very much, and I say good evening to you. And
you have 1 minute remaining.
Say on this issue basically is that, as we all know, the COVID pandemic has brought this shortage onto us. But beyond COVID, as a research center, we've done some investigations and realized long ago that the issue of shortage of containers was bound to happen because of the fact that there is a lot of pressure on China and, for that matter, Asia. So for us, we are not surprised that we are facing this problem, which has been heightened by the coming in of COVID. What we are saying basically, which should be of interest to all of us on our country, is that this is because the demand of cargo from China is becoming so much. And so the solution is for us in our part of the world to begin to manufacture some of the things, if not all.
I think we've lost Albert. He's the Executive Director of the Center for International Maritime Affairs, Ghana, CMAC, bringing some perspectives there to the discussion. I'm sure my producers will try and work the lines and see if we can get him back online. But let me come to you, Mr. Ampong, and find out from you whether you think that this container shortage can affect the operationalization or the efficiency, as it were, of AFTA, particularly the member states.
The task of creating a one African market is a gargantuan one. It's not something that can happen within a short amount of time. We can't, within a short amount of time, say we are not going to import anything all over again. Therefore, AFTA's mandate, which is to create policy, the policies that should allow me in Ghana to easily trade with Rwanda. Because as it stands before AFTA, it's not that simple. In fact, it might even make it more expensive to trade with my neighbor than to trade with a faraway country like China. So AFTA is trying to make it easier for me, if I so choose, to trade with my neighbor in Nigeria. Now, shipping container shortage disallows for produce, spare parts, machinery, materials to come to Africa quite easily. I think inherently it's going to make people now consider AFTA and want to actually catalyze the process even more, if I should be frank. AFTA is not going to build you a factory, but it's going to partner with entities that would say, if the math works out, then I'll build a factory. So I just would like to create that distinction that their job is policy. And then private entities can then come in to say, now it makes sense. Now the math makes sense. So instead of me going to the Turkish guy, I now prefer the Nigerian guy, the Nigerian factory. If a multinational wants to now come to create a hub like the Toyota's hub in Tema, I'm sure AFCHA played a role in there. I will be frank, I've not done a lot of research about the Toyota's hub in Ghana, but it is such news that gets me excited.
Right.
Because when there are events like shipping shortage, and again, I can walk to my neighbor's house, it doesn't affect me. As far as we are all alive within the borders, it does not affect me. And if you look at the journey between Ghana and China, and Ghana and let's say Turkey, Ghana and Kenya is nothing. It's just a stone throw. Trucks can still make those journeys. So AFCHA's job might actually be catalyzed by this whole shortage because people are now looking for alternatives. And if that alternative works, if that unit mathematics work, there's no reason why a businessman will say it makes sense, it works, but I'm not going to do it.
Right. Okay, so let's go back onto the phone lines, and I understand we have Mr. Fiatri on the line. Hello, Albert. Once again, you're welcome back, and you were making a point when the line got truncated. Can you please flow? Hello.
I'm with you.
Albert.
Yes, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, absolutely. Please speak up a bit.
Yes, thank you very much. I was saying that we have conducted research and realized that this issue was coming to have a telling effect on us even before COVID started. And as we all know, with the coming on of COVID, a lot of things happen in the world. And especially because China has recovered quickly, there is a lot of pressure from all around the world, Europe and America, as we all know. And this is the cause of what we are.
Hello. Hello, Albert.
Hello, Sam.
Yes, please go ahead. Please flow. I think your line is a bit cranky.
But that, please, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. I was saying that beyond COVID, we saw this coming, and we are suggesting that the only solution to this problem, as we have it now, is for us as a continent to concentrate on trade and manufacturing and be able to do some of the things, if not all, for ourselves, so that we can be able to get out of this abyss. Because as we can all see, America and Europe, because most of their manufacturing companies or industries are now producing directly from China, their cargo demand from there is so huge. And unfortunately, the turnaround time has changed. And so a lot of containers are not returning to Asia as it should be. And it's affecting all of us, especially those of us in Africa who don't even manufacture most of the things that we depend on. So that is exactly the challenge that we find ourselves in.
Okay, so you are recommending that we shift focus perhaps to industry, manufacturing, and maybe give impetus to AFTA.
That is exactly the point. It is time for, because we now have AFTA on our tables, to take advantage of it and just push forward and see out of this.
All right. Thank you very much for your thoughts, Mr. Albert Fiatri. He's the Executive Director of the Center for International Maritime Affairs, Ghana, CIMAG, bringing us some perspectives onto the discussion there. Let me come to you, Mr. Asiedudate, and find out, going forward, whether you think that we should begin to look at some perhaps local policies. And I know one of the agencies to lead that charge when it gets there is the Ghana Shippers Authority, to ensure that we ameliorate this situation and get back on track as far as this phenomenon of boxes shortage is concerned.
Yeah, so certainly, yes. I mean, I think that it is important to introduce some interventions. And some of the interventions that we think is important, like I indicated earlier, is to get our people to have a certain consciousness in terms of the appropriateness of, or like taking urgent action with respect to their shipments. okay, gathering sufficient information, ensuring that shipments are done on time, cargo clearance, because, you know, we also did something on demurrage, demurrage sensitization, because we found out through a research project that at the time, about 80% of the containers that were imported were not cleared within the free period. You know, of course, things have improved subsequently with the paperless and all of the other interventions that have been made. But there is still that need for us to introduce that consciousness among the shippers, you know, to be able to ensure that things are done on time. The other issue about the UCL, I've talked sufficiently about it. Very recently, let me just veer off a bit and talk about some intervention that Customs has introduced. Very recently, we saw a publication that Customs issued as in a review of freight. You know that the levels of freight which we are talking about are figures that are paid, or the freight values that are paid to the shipping line for the carriage of the goods.
Right.
But if you come locally, by the Customs Act, okay, at 891, the basis for the valuation of customs duties is cost, insurance, and freight.
CIF,
And so this freight figure we are talking about is supposed to be a component part of the tax base for any import that comes into the country. And so you can already understand that if we have this astronomical figures, you know, being put in there to add up to the base based upon which a certain percentage is paid at tax, a number of our shippers are going to get out of business. And so we saw only last week an intervention from Customs to the effect that their verified freights, you know, show that there's been an increase, or an astronomical increase, as they put it, you know, and for that matter, they were capping the freight, or they were adjusting the freight as follows. So for a 20-footer container coming from the Asia region, they're charging $3,000. And then for a 40-footer container, it's $5,000. And then for a reefer 40-footer, it's $8,000. So effective July 1, that is going to be the position, you know. Now, come to think of it. As a result of that, I have read at least 2 press releases. One from the Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana, one from GUTA. And they make quite some good points. Again, because if you were adding 3,600 as freight to your cost and your insurance, or to your cost even before insurance is calculated, and then duty was determined, and then now you're going to be adding, instead of the 3,600, you're adding 13,000. You're adding 12,000. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And so Customs, in their wisdom, have decided to cap it at this level. And the agitation is that, no, let us remain where we were. And where were we? I think that for most part, a lot of the importers were using the previous rates. Because I personally spoke with some highly placed custom officers and asked, why this intervention? And they said, no, the rates that were used previously, so i.e., they were still using the 3,600, you know, and government revenue was dipping. And so they have done this adjustment to kind of cushion. But in actual fact, the law requires that importers would input freight payable or freight paid. So if you're going to be doing true and accurate declaration, that then means that you should be adding, in fact, the 13,000. You know, so I see this as a mitigation to that. But again, there is debate, you know, about whether that is the appropriate time to do it, or it's the right thing to do at this time. You cannot begrudge Customs for what they have done, because I think that even in the adjustment, they still have left some allowance, you know, for importers to breathe. But there are two things that I want to talk about. One, I think that for any such policy intervention, usually it's important to do some level of consultation. You understand? Or sensitization, so that people are aware what you are intending to do. Because there are cash flow issues, there are planning issues, there are all of those things in the pipeline, which I think that, you know, that should have been considered in the introduction of this policy. Number two, I also think that there are importers and exporters who have long-term contracts with the shipping lines. And so somebody would have signed maybe a 1-year contract to do, say, 1,000 containers into Ghana or 2,000 containers into Ghana, spreading over 12 months, i.e. January to December. And so if in the middle of the year, customs comes up with this, in actual fact, for the others, it would be considered as maybe a mitigation. But for this individual who is actually paying still the 3,600, raising it up to 5,000 is like, you know, throwing a dagger in his finances. You know, and I think that all of these things need to be considered before such policy positions are taken.
Right. You know. Okay, there are some messages here that I'll be taken pretty shortly, but let me come up from you. Come back to you. With regards to the UCL, I sensed some element of frustration in your tone, given the fact that perhaps following your engagements, results are not forthcoming. Are you considering escalating this discussion, perhaps beyond the level of the various CEOs that you have interacted with and engaged?
Yeah. I think, okay. At the time we did
because
the work,
it's unfair to
at
have
the time
containers stuck in
exactly
the port for 5 years, a year, 3 years, 2 years, 6 months. It doesn't make sense.
And I have all the information here. I could share with you after the program, but it's quite frustrating. Not only for the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, but also for the shipping lines. Because, you know, if you consider the situation we are in, boxes have suddenly become pricey. And then these are the same equipment that is locked up there. And sometimes when the goods are even auctioned, customs, I mean, the shipping lines or the shipping lines agents are not aware. And so they would have to just keep following to find out where to pick up their bulks before they move on to the next customer. And I think that is the reason, in fact, that is the reason why this industry-wide committee has been set up. The idea is that, one, we will streamline the processes, we'll deal with all the challenges, make recommendations, and I believe that the Customs Commissioner, the Commissioner General, the Director General of GPHA, and the Chief Executive of the Ghana Shippers Authority, you know, are fully committed to this. And once the committee comes up with very good recommendations, which I believe they will, then that will be escalated for implementation.
Right.
And I believe that once we get to that bridge, this issue of UCL, if not done away with completely, would be mitigated somewhat.
Right. All right, so let me take these messages and then we would see if we can activate the phone lines and get interactive with our viewers. This one says, great show, Iron Port. Something must really be done about this container shortage, but freight charges have gone up astronomically. This one is from Isa from Tema. This one says, I think the shortage of containers is deliberate and made by some big shots to make huge monies. This is from Isaac in Takrady. And this one says, kudos Iron Port and your guests. The cost of shipping is really affecting us and we are unable to ship more containers to Ghana. There's no name attached to this one. What do you want to, you know, I think he's beginning to read conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I think very respectfully, I think I don't agree with Isaac at all because the data on the ground does not support his viewpoint. Yes.
Right.
I mean, these are real issues. As I speak with you, CMA CGM has placed an order for 100,000 containers. Hapag-Lloyd has placed an order for 210,000 containers. And it's going to cost them about some $770 million. I mean, we are talking about huge sums of money that people are throwing in there to mitigate the situation. This obviously cannot be some creation, to kind of disturb global supply chain. I don't think so.
Right. Okay, so at this point, let me announce that the phone lines are activated. You can give us a call. The number to dial is 020-552-8353. 020-552-8353. Get interactive with my guests who want to pick your questions, and if there are contributions you just want to make or comments, they are welcome. Let me come to you, Max, and find out from you whether he's spoken extensively about some of the things that we should be doing locally.
Yes.
What are some of the solutions you want to prefer? Apart from the after thing that you mentioned, what are some of the things that you think that we should be doing? You think that there should be deliberate enactment of policies to mitigate this particular situation?
Before I address that, I want to talk about the conspiracy theory. Another thing that the public needs to know that shipping containers are made of steel.
Right.
And I think from last year, the price of steel is up by 200%. So actually private entities like shipping companies do not make any money when you are not having enough containers to even order more. So what is happening is that they are actually, just like my very good friend confirmed, they are trying to get as many shipping containers as possible, but it's not fast enough because there's a shortage of steel in the world right now. And the price has literally gone up 200%. So it's very easy to scream, the big man somewhere is pushing a button and moving satellites here or there, but just like he said, the facts on the ground do not support it. With the situation on the ground, you see, when there is an increased demand and a shortage of supply, the only way you fix it is to reduce the demand or increase the supply. It's either or two things, and you cannot tell people not to demand what they need to demand.
So, Max, please hold your fire.
Yes.
I'll come back and continue from where you just left off. But let's welcome John from Accra on the phone lines. Hello, John.
Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, and good evening to your guests in the studio.
Yeah, good evening.
My name is John Yamon, calling from Accra.
Okay.
In fact, I am very, very much appreciated with the discussion which is going on. And I think, as they have all suggested, let's do well to discongest the port so that money will not be going outside. I'm disturbed with the issue about government's inability to clear other containers which is sitting there and the law effective. Why so? We need to take steps to make sure that all these things that is the problem. But my next suggestion is that at times this auction, somebody bringing in an item and fail to pay the duty and you auction it cheaply to somebody, I want to suggest that they should look at that level and rather auction that very item to the person who has brought it in instead of selling it to somebody else. So that is my suggestion.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, John. John is quite appalled at the UCL situation, and he thinks that it's not the best. I mean, absolutely, I agree with him perfectly. And he also says that when you bring in an item and it gets to auction, we should auction it to the fellow that brought it. But I think that the idea is that if you do that, a lot more people take a queue and want to do that. I'll go and bring my product, leave it at the port, my cargo, leave it at the port, waiting and being on the as soon as they say it's going for auction or it's mine, then they auction to me. I mean, I think that it doesn't make sense. But one good thing I think I can say about the vehicle auction is the fact that once, for now, when you go to pick it, you pay the duty, exact duty on the particular vehicle before you are able to take it. And now we understand that one of the modules that will be rolled out by ICOMS is the e-auction.
Yes.
Well, because I talk now, the truck, all the better trucks. Anyway, so that was just on the lighter side. And so we thank John for the call. So let me come back to you, Max, to continue. You can also give us a call, and the number to dial is 020-552-8353. We're glad to pick your calls. Yes, you were telling us what some of the things that we can do.
Yes, so to pick up from where we left, when there's increased demand and insufficient supply, you either decrease the demand or you increase the supply. There's an instance where a man has to eat, the importer has to import, the trader has to trade. So you cannot tell them to suddenly stop needing what they need. So not to escape the question, but it again circles back to the fact that we need to increase supply of whatever we need. And if there is a problem with that link far away somewhere across the sea, we have to look around us. We have to look internally. Denmark did it in the 80s. Now Denmark is an export country.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens within a blink of an eye, but we need to look at other alternatives. We need to force ourselves, because this is the time that it makes sense to be innovative.
Right.
Back then, if you try something new, then it becomes as if you are a maverick. But now, you hear disrupt, you hear innovation, and everybody suddenly brands you a unicorn, $1 billion company, because the world is now welcoming innovation. It's welcoming young guys with brilliant ideas. It's welcoming new ways of doing things.
Absolutely.
And I think we should take advantage of that.
All right. Let's go to the phone lines once again and welcome Samuel. Samuel is calling us from Tema. Good evening, Samuel.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. Samuel.
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead with the submission.
Okay, what I want is, okay, I'm Samuel to calling from Tema. What I want to say is, this year, across board, almost all the shipping lines has raised their charges by 100%. And failure to pay added up to the UCL, building up a whole lot. And even applying to get things out of UCL is a whole heck of time. And I tell you now, and just from this 1st July, it's this astronomical increment in freight, especially from Asia and across board.
Okay. Is that all, Samuel? Hello, Sammy, are you there? All right, so thank you very much indeed, Samuel, for your call. You can also give us a call, 020-552-8353. Mr. Asedudate, I think you'd want to take that he's complaining about astronomical increases in charges. He says 100% by shipping lines. Is that really the case?
The shipping lines impose a number of charges. I'm not very sure which one he's focusing on, but let me just take a wild guess.
Okay.
Perhaps he's talking about the port additional charge.
Okay.
Very recently, the shipping lines had to increase the port additional charge from about 70% for some and others getting up to 100%.
Right.
It's as a matter of fact, that was as a result of an adjustment in the charges by GPHA.
Okay.
And so it's a consequence of the increment or the adjustment of the tariff of GPHA. And so the point is that once that was done, again, for us as the Ghana Shippers Authority, we thought we needed to intervene. We had several engagements with the GPHA and then with the shipping lines. And this matter was escalated to the Honorable Minister for Transport, who then instructed that we needed to go back, sit down, and do some work on it. The point is that Ghana has developed a position on this particular charge.
Right. Okay, so we'll come back to that. You continue from where you left off. But let me welcome Nelson from Teshi to the show. Hello, Nelson. Good evening, sir. Hello, Nelson.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, boss.
Yeah, please flow.
I'm you. An issue has to do with the UCL.
UCL,
In fact, this UCL, we are all talking about container shortage and all stuff. Then here comes the case. I'm ready now to pick up my box. And before let me, the Shippers Authority, he said every 21 days. I want to make this clear that it's not to 21 days.
I think it's 21 days for general goods and 60 days for vehicles.
Yes. UCL, you can't even clear. It happened to me. I tried to check the days, and it wasn't up to 21 days. And you see, we are talking about this container shortage. Now, I want to pick my box today. That same time after release, before you even that is going to
Nelson.
UCL. You see, so now I'm not going to stay to a house, go here, come here. Meanwhile, I had wanted to pick the box that same minute, that same day. But because of UCL, apart you have to go to say, a bunch of people that because of UCL. 2, now, MPS, if I want to pick my box today, MPS tells me maybe I can pick now, but maybe you can pick it around.
Okay. All right. Nelson. Yeah. Nelson, thank you very much. I think along the line, his line was a bit cranky, but we got the import of his call and his message. He's not so much happy with all the happenings, you know, and I don't know whether, I saw you taking notes, whether you would want to respond to.
Yes, but if I can finish with the initial, or maybe I should finish with
all right.
this first.
No, you finish with the earlier submission. You said Ghana are taking a position on that particular charge.
So I was saying that Ghana's position is that, you know, when goods are shipped into the country, okay, the freight that is paid is determined by the line, okay, and that freight has components. All of those components relate to the particular shipment. And so what we are seeking to do is that as a component of the freight, any port charges, for instance, port dues, stevedoring charges, pilotage, and all of those things are component parts of the freight that is paid. And consequently, if there is an adjustment of that charge, we do not think that it is fair to isolate that increase and charge as a separate charge. Worst of all, to exact that charge at the port of destination. So this is Ghana's position, that yes, you are at liberty as a shipping line to recover your cost with respect to the transaction in terms of the shipment transaction. Right. However, that separation and the fact that you're seeking to impose it locally will not be acceptable. The report of the committee is ready, and the minister is giving it some attention. I am sure that some declaration is expected pretty much soon.
Yes. Okay, all right. All right, so let's take this one. It says, can shipping lines compel countries like Ghana who don't return boxes, that is MDAs, to replace boxes they can't clear? And can't containers be produced in Ghana? This one's from Jake in Winneba.
Okay, let me respond to this one, and then I'll go back to the first.
Okay,
we had an outstanding question.
Yes, absolutely.
But the issue is that can Ghana manufacture containers? I think there is nothing that is beyond any person or country that is focused on achieving that. Currently, I shudder to say that about 80% of the world's containers are manufactured by 3 companies in China. You know, and well, we might need to transfer that technology. Already now you see some of our metal workers doing some amazing work with metals. And so it is something that perhaps we could venture into and then see how it fares.
Right. Yes. So this one, so the first one said whether shipping lines can compel countries like Ghana who renege on returning boxes, particularly the MDAs, to replace the boxes.
There is no precedence. I haven't seen or read anywhere that shipping lines have instituted or like enforced this kind of position. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But I think that all of the issues surrounding this UCL is what we are seeking. And so, in fact, we have a lot of hope in the committee that has been set up. Right. And I do believe that, I mean, once the recommendations come up and all of these things will be dealt with. Okay. Because there is some commitment around the table that, for me, is very exciting. Right. Now, if I were to go back to, I think Nelson it was, that says that his goods came in and it was not up to 21 days, but they were auctioned. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think this perception is not just for Nelson. a number of people have come up with the same
complaints, okay.
yes complaint, and I think that the perception generally is that there's some level of arbitrariness in terms of how the UCL business is administered by customs.
Right.
And that is the reason why, again, the committee is supposed to develop a standard operating procedure, which would be binding on all parties, you know, so that everybody would be, you know, compelled to follow the law, because it becomes the law.
Right.
For all of us in the industry.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So because this UCL issue has generated a lot of interest, I think that we'll try and work around it and see whether next week we can have a discussion on it. But we have barely 3 minutes to go. Let me come to you for your last words. You know, what do you think that will be happening if we don't take immediate steps to resolve this matter or to work around it and ensure that we, you know, ameliorate the situation?
I think Fred has given me more hope than before I started the show. Just like he said, from where he sits, he can see that the powers that be are aware. They are being very inclusive with their decision making. What I liked about what he said especially was about the guy that has a 12-month contract, how a solution for the masses might not necessarily serve him. And if you have leaders that are looking at particular niches to make sure that there are custom-made solutions for that, again, Fred just gave me much more hope. I might sleep better at night knowing that the situation is being looked at by the right people.
Right.
With the shipping containers, again, we are being forced to look inward. And Fred again mentioned about how some innovative work is being done with metal containers. We have to look at the economies of scale here. A little bit of support might be just 2% of what a huge nation like China is doing. We need policies that can run decades to be able to make those giant steps to compete, to make, again, our trading bloc self-sufficient. And I think that with the discussion that we've had here with our listeners, how they have joined us in the conversation, this will go a long way to drive some discussions for the short term and hopefully the long term as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Maxwell Ampong is the CEO of Maxwell Ampong is the Chief Executive Officer of Maxwell Investments.
Group.
Maxwell Investments Group, yes. I've seen some plenty messages here, but I'll come to you for your last words. But let me just deal with these messages. My producer would be on me. Kudos, Mr. Fred Asedudate. The submissions are right on point. This is from Team Shippers. Okay, I think your people are monitoring. These shipping lines manipulate the shortage of containers, and freight rates have gone 5-6 times. Shortage of containers is delaying shipments, and the sector is facing some challenges like inadequate availability and rising rates of raw materials, that's polymers, increasing shipping freight, container shortage, and inverted duty structure due to certain free trade agreements. This one is from Ms. Tao, Tamale Central. All right. Very innovative program. Kudos to the panelists, especially Mr. Asedudate. This one is from Kate. Hi, Port. I'm really enjoying the discussions. Nice program. The man from GSA is very eloquent from the authority. This one is from, okay. And then this one says, hello and good evening, sir. I am Pascal, a mentee of Sir Maxwell. Thanks for the enlightenment. We really appreciate this edition. Right, so one of your mentees sent a message, thanking you sincerely. Just within 30 seconds, sir, what are your final words as far as this issue?
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.